Politic alert! Rock on. Who am I? My name's Taylor, and I'm an independent data analyst. For a living, I'm a senior data analyst. What that means is I actually provide context to what numbers say, not just give people numbers, but I explain what they mean. On top of that, I run databases, I manage dashboards, I communicate to leadership, and I communicate to front-level employees, and I communicate like crisis events that go on. So it's kind of like an important job. Just kidding. Pretty boring, and there's nothing fancy about it. But I analyze data, and you always have to go to the source. When I talk about politics, or what I think of as civic engagement, I want you to know it comes from a place of expertise and understanding of like data integrity. And I'm okay if I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. Matter of fact, I think it's very manly to admit when you're wrong and when you made a mistake. If you're like me, I want to live in a world where people take ownership on their actions and not just blame everybody. So I have this word that I created called the deflectagarchy. And think about that for a second. This doesn't just impact leadership, it impacts all of us. I know you've been in those conversations with people. I've seen them online all the time, and I've had them in person where you're talking about given subject in politics. And next thing you know, they're deflecting to the other party. I don't know about you, but that's pretty annoying to me. And I call it the deflectagarchy. So it's not just like in our media, it's also in just individual situations with family and friends. And I have some suggestions around it. First of all, call it out as a deflection, okay? Because when you engage with MAGA folks, the first thing they're going to do is make it personal. You know I'm right, MAGA. You always make shit personal. Just call it out for what it is. Why are you making this personal? Or another good one. Why are you talking to me like that? We're both U.S. citizens. Maybe your friends, maybe your family, right? Call it out. That's a deflection. Let's actually stick to the subject matter here, right? So bring it back. Now, one trick that a lot of people aren't used to in this world, in our world really, is when people listen to each other to understand each other instead of always only listening to try to like respond, right? There's always these people who are always like knee-jerk reactions. Stop that shit. Just listen to each other to understand each other, right? Even if you disagree, just sit back, listen to them. Look them in the eye. It might be uncomfortable, just look them in the eye. Most people aren't used to that type of communication, okay? But the first thing it's going to happen, it's going to make them feel like they're human. Oxytocin is going to be flooded through their veins. And the more friendlier you are, or better yet, depending on the level of friendship you have with this person, the more oxytocin they get. And other hormones too that make them feel good. It's science. So having conversations is actually healthy. It's kind of interesting. Now this comes with years of experience. I've tested this. It's not just me saying shit. I used to take phone calls for a living for 13 years. And that was one thing that I would always do, is I would always try to make the phone call fun, if I could. Try to get their mind off of the frustration they had. If I can get them talking about, especially themselves, guess what? I know they felt better when they hung up. And at the end of that call, when they hang up, they're going to get a survey, and they were, generally gave me, not always, but I have triggers and I would piss people off. But generally speaking, those conversations go well, is the point I'm trying to make, okay? So when I speak to you, there's a lot of experience. It's not just me trying to grift. It's not me just trying to tell you what to think. Matter of fact, I'm not trying to tell you what to think. What I want to do is I want to encourage you to think, right? Think about our elections, for example. You keep hearing about how our elections are rigged or riddled with fraud. Right? Millions of immigrants are voting. Venezuela hacked the elections. Elon Musk took over the election machines. China, Russia. There's so many excuses. Now, if you haven't heard, there's an organization called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. It's a mouthful. They monitor and manage the security infrastructure of our election system. So if anybody would know that our elections are being hijacked or rigged from the outside, they would be able to tell us. Okay? So during Donald Trump's 2020 election, the CISA confirmed that the United States had just ran the most secure election in modern history. Okay? On top of that, every state runs its own election through a series of laws that govern the registration process, laws that govern the polling process, laws that govern the mail-in process, the counting of the vote process, the certification of the votes in that state process. Folks, there's a reason why it takes a month for a state to certify its election. And when you think about the states, when every state runs its own election, that's the essence of what we call federalism. Let me ask you, if you wanted to control elections, what's the best way to do it? Have 50 individual states manage their own elections and govern their own laws, or one government that manages it all? Think about it. I think the answer is pretty clear. The one government. That's called federalizing your elections. Why do you think people are pushing for federalizing the elections? If you ask me, it's because they want to control the outcome. Because one thing I know as a data analyst, if one person controls everything, especially within an organization, that gives that one person a lot of power, or one group a lot of power. And that one group, whether it be 10, 15, 100 people, the federal government, that's a problem. And it would be easier to control. Having 50 states run their own elections is a form of security. That's the federalism concept I want you to understand. Now, I want you to think about this. Donald Trump and the MAGA people want to tell you and I that millions of immigrants are voting in our elections. And I challenge that thought process with this. In 2024, there were about 256 million Americans 18 and older. That would mean that's 256 million people who would technically be eligible to vote, minus a handful of people who have committed federal crimes, right? Out of that 256 million people, 156 million people voted. A little bit more than that. We're rounding here. That's a participation rate of about 59%. So you're telling me that there's millions of those people are illegal immigrants. Okay. Let's run with that. If that were true, there would be a paper trail. States run audits. And a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, in 2020, Donald Trump, he instructed Bill Barr to investigate the elections. And Bill Barr shouldn't have, but he did. Bill Barr found out there was no credible evidence to Donald Trump's claims about election fraud. There weren't. So that's Bill Barr. And Bill Barr, you know who we know what he ran? The Justice Department. So you don't have to take my word for it. You could take his. You could take the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. You could take their word for it. You can take every election audit that was done in 2020. You can take every recount that was done in 2020. You can go back and take testimony and compare it to the video that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani want you to believe that Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss were handing a USB drive full of votes for Joe Biden, which gives that big old wave that you saw. In reality, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss testified that they were handing a ginger mint to each other. How do you know, Taylor? Testimony. How can you trust testimony, Taylor? Easy. When you lie under testimony, it's under perjury, right? And you can go to jail. Now, have you seen Donald Trump testify under oath? No, you haven't, especially in regards to this subject. So when the media and professionals, historians tell you and I that there's a potential chance that Donald Trump and the MAGA movement might try to stay in power, that's not being hyperbolic. The media warned about Hitler back in the day. Do you think they were being hyperbolic then? Stop comparing Trump to Hitler. It's not what I just did. Stop taking everything so fucking personal, MAGA. Now you might be asking, why is this important to you? Because if you care about your free speech, if you care about your gun rights, if you care about your freedoms in general, my message is important to you. My goal is to de-Trumpify this country. And I know it's not going to be easy because it requires you and I to have conversations with people that disagree with us, people that are going to call you names. So again, I suggest that you just call it out as a deflection. Why are you talking to me like that? Why are you acting like a child? That might be a little too abrasive, but maybe sometimes it requires that. That's the point I'm making. We're not children. We're grown adults. We should be mature about this. And Trumpism impacts everybody, and the deflectagarchy impacts all of us. Because when Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, those in power, when they deflect, and no one challenges that, you start seeing a media ecosystem that deflects. And then you're going to see generations of people who just deflect. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in that type of world. I want to live in a world where people take ownership on their actions, like mature adults. You know I'm not wrong. If you're a parent, what if your child came home and blamed their actions on Johnny down the street? Would you accept it, or would you correct their behavior? I'm sure you would correct their behavior. So when you communicate with other people, after you bypass and deflect like a shield that that personal insult. You libtard. You got Trump derangement syndrome. You're just brainwashed by the woke liberal media. I'd be like, yo, I'm not brainwashed because I listen to all media. We're not going to act like children. Those are some things you can come back with, right? But once you get past all that, what I want you to do is I want you to look at the other person in the eye, if you can. But I want you to listen to them, to understand them. Don't just listen to them to respond to them. Like, actually listen. You're going to notice something. Number one, you're going to make them feel like a human. Hormones will be released into their bloodstream, making them and you feel better. And also, too, they're not expecting you to respond that way. They are expecting you to respond like a liberal that they've seen in a Charlie Kirk video. Charlie Kirk comes prepared, backed by a bunch of billionaires, and Donald Trump throwing free hats, surrounded by fans, cheering. I can only imagine the people, the little liberals that went up to talk to him, or the kids, right? Because they're just a bunch of kids in college. I can only imagine how hyped up their heart rates are. Charlie Kirk's just used to it. Boom, just moves through it. And of course, you're going to see clips. Charlie Kirk said nice things about this lady, but the things you don't see is the insults. We've been demoralized to where we don't see those things, and we've taken sides. Oh, I'm on team this, I'm on team that. And I know I'm sitting here with a Kamala was right hat, but I'm not on a team. I'll admit it, and I don't like to admit it, but I voted for Trump in 2020. Yeah, that's a mistake I made in life. Being informed is like paying attention regularly, not just every other election year. And I say every other because a lot of people skip midterms. So it gets back to my point. I want to get to this. What's important to me is that I'm building what I call a voting dashboard, and it's on my website, thestrategicowl.com. This little barcode over here, you can scan it. It brings you right to my website. On my website, there's a few things that are beneficial to you. Number one, if you have an iPhone, I've coded and designed an application. It's free. There's no advertising. There's no data harvesting. None of that. In my app and on my website, you have access to the same things, the voting dashboard and also the Constitution. Think of it like a pocket Constitution. On the voter dashboard, there's a drop down. Click your state. In that drop down, a link pops up. Go register to vote and share it with others and encourage them to register and vote as well. Right now, I've got it set for the primaries. You'll see your registration deadline and the primary date in your state. Below that is a Trump check. Type in your zip code, hit the button that says Trump check. It runs your zip code through my database, validating what district you're in. Disclaimer, zip codes attached to multiple districts. If you need to verify, there's another button that takes you to the house.gov website. Punch in your address. It'll tell you what district you're in. Then you'll know exactly what candidates will be on your ballot with links to their websites. And I forgot to mention, you'll see little flags, little Trump flag that says that they support Trump, and a little impeach flag that means they want to impeach him. And that's my effort to try to de-Trumpify this country. Did I mention all this is free? If you're a long form reader, I invite you to my Substack, strategicowl.substack.com. It is also free. I do offer a paid subscription model. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. And this is my social media presence outside YouTube. If you do subscribe at the paid tier, I give you my AI language model technical tips and a VIP link to get hats like this at a discount. And that's my thank you for your support. And for a living, what I do has nothing to do with politics, has everything to do with numbers, data, and context. I use AI language models in my work environment, and it saves me hours and hours and hours of time. So that means my tips come with some actual real weight, if you know what I mean. Now, why am I holding a guitar, right? This whole time. Some people like to follow my guitar progress. So that's what I'm going to play next. And because I don't want to buy music rights, I figured I would just learn music for my own content creation. So you can click out now. My name's Taylor. I just want to say thank you for listening this long if you have. If you're just tuning in, welcome. This is the guitar section. This is going to be in the key of A, pentatonic minor, tuned to drop D. Thank you, everybody. And I know those of you who might just be tuning in, I know I'm wearing a Kamala was right hat. That's because she was. No, just an alert. This is going to be raw. I know previous section was clipped, and that's really just to kind of save time and keep attention going. This is just going to be full on, no cuts, except now. I just want you to know that I'm new to guitar. I'm not an expert. I'm not great at it. You're going to hear errors and mistakes, but it just shows you I'm human. But I know people like to listen to progress, and that's really what this is for. So no more cutting from here. I promise. Okay. I like that little ending. Sorry to just end on a little note. It just sounded good. D. Sorry, I'll play it again. I really like that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you did make it this far, I hope the chopping isn't too much, but it is what it is. You got to keep people engaged nowadays. We're an attention-based economy, and I do actually writing about that right now after this video. So thanks for watching. My name's Taylor. Subscribe, don't subscribe, don't matter to me. I don't make any money. Appreciate you. I love you, America. Have a good day.